So this is the Kuf Zayin with Beis on the bottom. Mishnah. So talking about Mian, not Dafka Yevamos. Helchas Mian comes in also. So we said Mian again means when a Katana, that a girl that's a Katana, so as long as her father's alive, he can marry her off, and it's Kiddushin D'Oraisa. But if not, so then with the Raisa, there's no way to marry. And Chazal didn't want there should be a girl that's not married, that has no supervision. So get her married, then they invented Kiddushin D'Rabbanan. And this sugi is talking about the Hagdar of Kiddushin D'Rabbanan. So far we had that there's a Mian that she could just refuse in order to leave. She doesn't need a get. And we had the first Mishnah that had 5 machlokes and Misham and Beis Hillel. And now the Mishnah continues. Eizoi Ketana shetzricha lemayin kol she'siyua ima that ain't tzricha lemayin. The first halach is that it only works b'chlal if she agrees to it. It means if the mother or the brother, I don't think there's any more authority to the mother or brother than anything, any other relative or anybody else that's helping her. That's not the point. The point is that she has to agree. Ladata. The first thing is that it has to be that she agrees to this marriage, or else it's not a marriage at all. Then she doesn't even need mian. If she didn't agree to it, then there's no official mian. She does never got married. If it was without her consent, so then she doesn't need anything in order to leave. She just leaves even without saying I don't want. There never was a marriage at all. The next point of the Mishnah. Another point that it also has to be that there's a minimum age that she knows how to have some kind of responsibility, and she understands that what she got, if she got money for Kedushin, so that it's her money and she watches over it and she keeps it as she treasures it as a Kedushin, like a ring. You give her a ring so she knows how to watch it as a Kedushin ring. But if she's so young that she doesn't even have enough seichel for that, then it's also too young. They didn't invent the Kedushin D'Rabbanan for such a young girl. It has to be that she's old enough to understand that she got Kedushin and she should watch it. The Rambam also says not that she watches it the way she watches a toy, goes in. The way she watches something that's chashuv. So she has to realize that she got Kedushin. Yodas lishmar Kiddusha. That's the second tonight. Maybe we'll also highlight that she has to be Yechola lishmar Kiddusha. Has to be ladata, and also she has to be old enough to be able to watch the Kedushin that she got. The next halacha, Rabbi Lazar, Omer, Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Eliezer, Ein Maaseh Katana Klum El Kimafuta. He's saying the Agdara. Now he's not coming to say a condition of how to do when you have to have this Kedushin, but he's saying what is the Agdara? What is the definition of this marriage, this Kedushin D'Rabbanan? What are the mechanics? How do we define it? So he says that really it's nothing. It's not a marriage at all. It's permissible to live with her, and you need miyun in order to leave. She has to say officially she wants to leave. But otherwise, it's not considered a marriage at all. Ein Maaseh Katana Klum, that her act, that she accepted the Kedushin is nothing. It doesn't have any validity. It's just like she's been seduced. But it's a kosher seduction. It's not seducing somebody that's usher. It's not znus. But it's just as if he's having relations with a girl that's not married, not marriage. And therefore, he has some ramifications. The Gemara is going to say more ramifications besides the Mishnah. For instance, Bas Yisrael Kohen lo sochel b'truma. Bas Kohen Yisrael tochel b'truma. If she's a Bas Yisrael, then the husband, this husband Rabbanan, is a Kohen. Usually a wife is allowed to eat truma. She's an Eishes Kohen. This is not considered Eishes Kohen. This is not considered married, and she wouldn't be allowed to eat truma. And the opposite, if she was a Bas Kohen, usually when a Bas Kohen marries a Yisrael, she's not allowed to eat truma anymore. Bas Kohen Kisiel Izor. This is not called a marriage, so therefore she'd be allowed to eat truma. We're going to see that Rabbi Yeshua and the Gemara argues. We're not going to pass like this. We're going to pass that it is considered a marriage. Rabbanan Lagabi these things also. But Rabbi Lezer is not a marriage at all. The Gemara is going to be even more extreme to explain, to dramatize how much Rabbi Lezer is that it's not a marriage. But it's mutter. It's a permissible union. Hold up the idea of no, he holds it. It's just being magdir that it's the Rabbanan permitted that they should live together, and people call it like they're married, but it's halachically it's not a marriage at all. It's just that they're having union, and but it's permissible union, but it's not called a marriage, and therefore any ramifications of marriage don't apply. Rabbi Lezer, one more point that the Mishnah says, it doesn't bring down anybody that argues on Rabbi Lezer, but we're going to see that Rabbi Yeshua argues, and we're not going to pass it like this, Rabbi Lezer. And now the last thing it says here is Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov Omer, Kol HaKaveh shehi min ha'ish kilu hi ishto, Kol HaKaveh she'ena min ha'ish kilu eina ishto. The word HaKaveh means being held back. It's not clear in the Mishnah what that means. They're going to be two pshatim in the Gemara what it means. Rashi at this point tells us that it means if the reason why she's being held to the husband is because of the husband, then it's considered his wife. But if there's something that she is held to the husband, not because of the husband, then it's not his wife. So very vague, very ambiguous term. And Rashi says, wait for the Gemara what it means. And we're going to see in the Gemara, there are two different shatim altogether in these last words. So we'll leave it for the Gemara. So we have five things over here. The first thing is that it has to be ladata. It has to be with her consent, or else it's not a marriage at all, even on a Rabbana level. Second point is that she has to be old enough to be able to watch the money that's given to her for Kedushin. The Rambam says that it's between 6 and 10 is, you could check out how smart she is. Less than 6 is not even a question. She doesn't have any doubts. She won't be able to watch it. And more than 10, I think he says that he assumed that she could, something to that effect. But you have to, the point that the Mishnah says is that she has to be able to watch the Kedushin that she was given, or else it's also not a marriage at all. Rabbi Elazar holds that this whole, the third point is that Rabbi Elazar holds that this whole invention of Kedushin Rabbanan is not really Kedushin, even on a Rabbanan level. It just means that they're allowed to live together. But anything that has to do with a marriage is not considered a marriage. For instance, Truma, it doesn't change her status of being a Bas Yisrael, a Bas Kohen. It doesn't change her status at all. And that's the third point. And the fourth point is ambiguous. We don't know what it means yet. We'll see in the Gemara. The Gemara starts on the bottom of Kuzayin. And it goes in not a point of the Mishnah B'chlal. It's talking about in the document that she gets. She gets a document after the Miyan to say that she's did Miyan and now she's free to marry anybody. So it has to be, they gave her a document. So what do they write in the document? What is the nusach of the shtar Miyan? The word get, it's not really get. The get just means a shtar. It doesn't mean a get. It's not a divorce at all. But they used to write a document to give her, best to give her a document that she was mine and she could marry on. So they used to write the following. They used to write.
What was the fifth?
That means the only four. I counted it wrong. The only four. And the fourth one, we said we don't know what it means yet. So we only said three. One is you need her consent. The second one is that she has to be old enough to watch the money that was given to her. And the third one was that Rabbi Elazar holds that it's not considered at all a marriage, just a mefuta. So the Gemara starts. What do you write in the document that she gets as a proof that she did miyum? So the original nusach was like this: Lo re'ina bei, below tzavino bei, v'lasana boyo l'snasavale. I don't want him. Two ways of saying I don't want him. I don't desire him. I don't want him, and I don't want to be married to him. That was what they used to write. That she came to us, the people that are signing this document, and she said in front of us that she doesn't want her husband. But they saw afterwards that it's not good to write such a fancy nusach. Chivin the chazud the nafesh dibur. They saw the too many words. It looks too many words. Looks like a real document, and the people might think that it's considered a get. Amri, they said there's a problem. They're going to make a mistake that it's a get, and Rashi seems to say that they're going to think this is a nusach of a get, and when the scribe is going to come to write a get, he's going to write the same kind of thing that the husband says that I don't want the wife, I don't want her, I don't desire her, I don't want to be married to her, and that's not the way to make a get. If a husband would write a get like that, it wouldn't be a good get. He has to say a different nusach. So in order that the sofrim shouldn't get confused and think that this is official nusach, the text to write for a get, so they said write differently, and they made a different nusach for a get miyan. So I said the get miyan doesn't mean a get; it's a shtar miyan. A shtar miyan is a document. The word get doesn't mean what we call a divorce. The word get just means a document. And we use it as a document of divorce, but the word get just means a document, and here's a document that testifies that she did miyan. So what is the nusach? So first they used to write that fancy lashon. Now they made a new nusach that won't be confused with a divorce. They write like this: Tekinu hachi. They write in the shtar b'yom ploni miyana plonis bas ploni ban pana. On a certain day, this and this day, Mrs. Somebody refused in front of us. That's all. New Gemara. What is the way to say miyan? What does the girl say? What does the girl say in order to show that she's refusing? So it gives a few examples. Amra, efshi beploni bali. That's one case that she says. I don't want my husband. I don't want him. I don't want this husband. Or she says, efshi vikidushin shekichuni imi vachi. That I don't want the marriage that my mother and brother did for me. A third case, yes, okay, even a bigger chiddush of this says, "Afilu yeshevas barpio and balachas bebeis rabia lebeis bala v'amar yevshi beploni bali zel miyan." Here he's giving a chiddush, even if she's on the way to the marriage. They made a big limousine, a perion, some kind of limousine. They're taking her to go to the marriage to the husband, and she says, "I don't want," but she goes anyway. Like it happens sometimes, the kid says, "I don't want," but They do it anyway. So that's called a mian. That's not good enough. It's not called a marriage. It's not
Called
It's not a marriage.
it's not called, it's called a mian. I didn't hear the words you said.
You're waiting for me to say that it's a mian, and I said it's not a marriage. You're right that the Gemara is saying that this is also called a mian, but I didn't say that. I said it's not called a marriage even,
Okay.
because that's what seems to be happening over here. It's not that there's a marriage and she did a mian. This seems to be a little kasha. Then Yaakov's asking that we're trying to say things here that are considered a refusal. The refusal is after they're married, then she has to refuse. And here we're saying that the Torah is not even a marriage in the first place. So I just tried to stick it in, but you didn't let me.
Well, because I just didn't hear the words you said.
But
You're saying that she said, I don't want to, and she went.
she's on the way.
That's called not a marriage.
Right. And the Gemara says it's called a mian. I'm saying it's called that it's not a marriage. It's called a mian or it's not a marriage. Mian.
She goes along.
She goes along.
And then he gives her a ring
And she's saying she doesn't want. She's saying she doesn't want, but she goes along with that anyway. She sticks out her finger. The mother says, Tyra kind, mein kind,
Right.
stick out your finger. And she says, I don't want, but she sticks out her finger. So that's also called a refusal. It's not called consent. We were talking about what if an adult girl does that? She's going on to the way to the marriage. And she says, I don't want, but they say you got to get married. Is that so? By an adult, that's called consent. She sticks out her finger. That's called consent. But he was saying that by a girl, this young girl, that she's being taken to be married. This man, that's inclusion Rabbanan. If she says that she doesn't want, even if she goes along with it, that's still called a mian. That's called she doesn't want. And then it goes on to bigger chiddush. Yes, she's married. She's married to this husband, and there's a table, and she's acting as a wife, and she's serving. She comes to take care of the guests. Her husband is sitting by the table with the guests, and she comes to serve the drinks. And she says, "I don't want him." Means even though she's being subservient, she's being like a wife. She's acting as a wife. She's doing the service that she's supposed to. But she says, "I don't want this. I don't like this." That's also considered a refusal, and she's not married, and she's out. Yes, okay. In the bigger chiddush, that the husband sent her on some errand to go to the store to get something for him. Shigras to send, right? Today also, that's first of all, how do they have in the Gemara? Shagrirut. That's called
messenger service.
No.
There is such a messenger service also. She calls shigur, but they also have in government when someone is a ambassador. She called it shagrir. So that's the word of shagar is the same. Even if her husband has sent her to the store to bring him something of his, and she said, I don't want my husband, but she's doing mamash's service even more than serving by the table. She's going on an errand to the store. All these things are considered mian. All these expressions, even though she doesn't say beferish, she did say beferish. Yes, she said, I don't want my husband. She went to the store to get it, and she says to the storekeeper, I don't want my husband. I don't want him. But she's doing what she was told to do. But she says
that's even more than serving at the party.
That's considered a big chiddush. The fact that she's going on an errand. She's going on an errand. That's more of a subservience. And still, if she says she's acting as a wife.
Well, because he's not even in front of her.
Maybe. Rashi talks about some more chiddushim also. The first case with the guests is no bezdin over there, and the case of the chenveni is not even only the chenveni alone. Rashi puts in some more chiddushim I wouldn't have seen in the Gemara. But all these things are all these things that she expresses that she doesn't want a husband, she doesn't want him. She said I don't want him, even though she's doing things that show that she is acting as she's accepting upon herself the wifehood. It's not. If she says she doesn't want, she doesn't want.
This lashon of yetzer.
Even Yeser al Kain, even a bigger chiddush. Yeser al Kain is always the beginning of a statement, even a bigger chiddush. Yeser al Kain, even more than
all
that.
those Yeser al Kains are part of the
Brisa, yeah.
Okay. So it's one long brisa.
It seems so, yes.
Even more so.
Even more so, even a bigger chiddush. The Gemara, so that was the first point that it said Ladaita. The Mishnah said that has to be that she agrees to it, and here we're talking about if she agreed to it or she agreed to it first, but then she refuses. All these cases are lashonos of miyam. Then the Mishnah said, right, that doesn't have das to watch her Kedushin is not old enough to be Kedushin even to Rabbanan. That was the Mishnah. That's how we paskin. Period. That's the end of that. We paskin like that, that if she's too young to have das to watch her Kedushin, so it's not a Kedushin. If you want to air condition everybody, do what's good for everybody.
Yeah, something.
As long as whatever's good for everybody, as long as
If it gets too hot, turn on the
the Brisa continues. Tana, the Brisa.
So all these cases are accepted as
As a mian, yeah. All these cases are a mian. And then the next Gemara said we pass
Was it
like,
because the words came out of her mouth?
right.
The words
We're gonna-
came out of her mouth, even though she did things contrary.
Right. She's showing some wifehood. She's acting in wifehood, but she's saying, I don't want. If she says she doesn't want, she doesn't want.
That's me.
And the next Gemara soon we're going to talk
Might
about,
be scared. I mean, she's probably
if she says she doesn't want, she's out.
No,
she-
I'm saying that he's doing his will.
She can say she doesn't want and she leaves.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening. She says she
Yeah,
doesn't want,
if
she
she was
leaves.
scared, she wouldn't say. The fact that she says is going past her fear.
I think she has to be told. The whole thing is with her knowledge. We said in the beginning, she's only Ladata. She has to be told also that she can get out whenever she wants. I think if she's not told, then it's not a proof to anything. So I think that she has to be told she has the right anytime to refuse. And even if she's still acting in wifehood, if she says she doesn't want, that's the way to leave. The next Gemara said one line, be passing like Rav Pnina ben Atignis, that said that if she's too young to know to watch her kedushin that was given to her, she doesn't have enough seichel, then it's not kedushin even on a drabbana level.
And how do you judge that, and how is it more than a toy?
So the Rambam, very interesting. We said the Rambam says it has to watch it more than a toy. It has to be something chashuv, and not just not just that she watches it like a toy. I didn't.
Like a boy, let's say a boy at our boys in our world get a kippah at 3 years old. So I have a grandson who, it falls off and he doesn't. Where's your kippah? I don't know. And he's 3.
So he says minimum 6. Minimum 6. That's the just be the
I
Rambam.
mean, is a kippah like something that's more than a toy that he'd have to be able to keep something like that he knows you're supposed to have that on your head?
Or
I mean, how do you judge
you shouldn't
what's
lose
more
it.
than a toy?
Here he says, what is the age of a katana? From 6 to 10. You check her if she has seichel, if she knows how to watch her kedushin, and that it is kedushin. Not that she watches it like she would watch a nut or a date.
Uh-huh.
Then she needs miyun. She has to know that it's kedushin, like a
So
quality,
like in our experience, something that like has kedusha, like
or something
well,
significant,
sacred
something a lot of
Torah or
significance,
a holy book that he wouldn't let it drop.
something like that. But she should give it significance.
Uh-huh.
Okay. The next Gemara said, Tana, Ketana Shalomia Navamda Venises. There are going to be other ways of showing that she doesn't want besides verbally expressing it. So she got married to somebody else. She accepted marriage from a second person. She's married to Ruvain, and she accepts Kedushin, Nusuin, from Shimon.
Shalomiyana means that
She didn't say explicitly that she refuses. She didn't refuse the first husband, Ruvain, but she got married to Shimon.
for Umed and
From
Venices to somebody
Venices.
else.
Yeah. So that shows that she does that her marriage to the second one is a way of refusing the first one. So even though she didn't say anything, that's a miyun, the fact that she married somebody else. But the Gemara is going to talk about the word nisu'ah. Nisu'ah means nisu'in. We know that in marriage there are 2 stages, it's kedushin and nisu'in. Here in nisu'in, she went to live with somebody. She was taken to somebody else's house and she agreed. Not that she did it for Znos. She did it because she wanted to marry him. Shimon, she wants to marry Shimon, and she went into his house to be married. So that's a way of refusing the first husband. That's what Yavudim and Beseira
That's
said.
without any words.
Without any words,
Those actions are
right? That action is even without any words. The action alone is enough to show that she refused, and that's the words of Yavudim and Beseira. Just to highlight that, Yavudim and Beseira, he says, Then why is a couple of questions about this? How about only kedushin? Means Rabbi Yehuda Meser just talked about Nisuin. If she marries, means she moves in to live as a wife with Shimon, so then it cancels the first marriage with Reuven. How about if she only was betrothed to Shimon? She only accepted money, a ring from Reuven, but she didn't actually go in to live with him. So is that also enough to cancel the first marriage? Tashma, Ketana Shalom Miana, Bamda Veniskacha, or to this case of Veniskacha, Mishum Rabbi Yehuda Meser Amu, Kidusha Hein Hein Miyuna. Okay, based that one. That's the second statement that he said. The first one was Nisuel, Hein Hein Miyuna, and the second statement he said was Kiddusha Hein Hein Miyuna. Not only Nisuin, not only she mamish marries the second person, even if she just got Kiddushin, Kesef Kiddushin from the second one, that also shows that she refuses the first one.
That's a bigger chiddush.
That's a bigger chiddush, right? Now the Gemara wants to know, a couple of questions. Pligia Rabban Alei David Rebbeseira Lo. Do the Rabbanan argue? Means we only have the statement of Avidim Ebesera. How about the Rabbanan? Did they argue? Did they hold that? No, that's not enough of a refusal. And a couple of questions more. Imtim Solom Peligi, and if they do argue, Kedushin or Filu Nisuin. Since we already divided, there are 2 subjects. One's Kedushin, one is Nisuin. So if the Rabbanan would argue, we don't know which one. Maybe Kedushin, and they would say Kedushin is not enough of a refusal, but maybe Nisuin they agree. Imtim Solom Peligi or Filu Nisuin. Even if we're going to say that they do argue about Nisuin, then who's the halacha like? Halacha kamoso, ain't halacha kamoso. Are we going to pass like Yehudim and Beseira or not? And if we're going to pass like him, is he even going to be by kedushin? Even that's enough also to be considered a refusal. So more or less, we have Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira that says openly that not only Nisuin, even kedushin to a second husband is enough to show that she refuses the first husband. We want to know if they're going to argue on one of these cases, two of these cases, and who the halacha is like, one of these cases, two of these cases. And the Gemara is going to be very extreme right away. Tashma, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Mashmuel, halacha Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. That Shmuel said the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. And if you say halacha Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, obviously it means that somebody is arguing. If no one would argue, you wouldn't say halacha. Halacha mechlal the pligi. If they said halacha, it must be that the chacham argue. And Tosfos explains that the Gemara means to answer all the questions, that they argue in every case, and the halacha is like him in every case. So if we be extreme, we would say that the Rabbanan would say even if she got nisuin to somebody else, also was not considered a refusal. But the halacha is going to be like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, that even kedushin to somebody else is also considered a refusal. And we're going to pass like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, the most kula, the most extreme kula, that even kedushin to a second husband is enough to show that she refuses the first husband.
But we still don't know what the argument is, right?
We do know, because
No,
he said
because-
Allah, what?
Halach is like him, so it's even to the big Kiddush that is even Kedushin. But the rabbis might say, but we do agree if it was.
So Tosfos says that the fact that it says, I can't say for sure I understand, but Tosfos says, halacha Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, ba'kulu koi ben kedushin ben nisuin, mechal d'Rabbanan pligi alei afilu ben nisuin. Tosfos understands that the Gemara is saying he paskins like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira in both cases, which means that the Rabbanan argued in both cases. So we got the answers to all the questions. They argue in both cases. We pass like him in both cases. That's as far as we got so now. Now the Gemara goes one step further. The Gemara wants to know, there's still another question to ask still. To have a nesiva meikara or dilma mikacha. What was her status with the first husband? How close was she to the first husband? The second husband we spoke about, even if he does kedushin, that's considered a refusal to the first husband. How much was she related to the first husband? Was it only kedushin or even nisuin? The first case, the first husband. If she was, the more married she was to the first husband, then it's more chiddush to get out of him. She has to do more to show that she's refusing him. So is the case that she's considered leaving, even if she was married, even if it was a nisuin, maybe only if it was a kedushin, maybe only she had kedushin to the first husband, and then she got married to somebody else. That means that she's canceling the first one. But if she was mamish married with nisuin, she lived with him, so maybe she has to say explicitly that she wants to leave him before she goes to somebody else. Just by marrying somebody else, maybe it doesn't show that she realizes that she's leaving the first husband, that she's refusing him. So what is the status of the first husband that will say that the marriage to the second husband is canceling out the first one? Is it only kedushin or even nisuin?
We're trying to ask what the
What
case
Rabbi
of
Yehuda
what Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira's
meant, right?
psak was.
Right, but he said that even kedushin cancels out the first marriage. Does it cancel the first marriage of even nisuin also? Tashma, a story, and this brings us back to the story of Avdan. If you remember a couple of pages ago, we had Avdan. That was a big story with he insulted Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi when he was coming in, walking out when everybody else was sitting on the floor, and he said, "Who's that? That's walking on the heads of everybody." And over there, he himself was guilty. And at the end, it said that because he insulted Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi, so two of his sons drowned. He became a Matzorah. Two of his sons drowned, and two of his daughters-in-law.
That was in the previous pair.
That was Kufay Ahmed Beis,
Thank you.
105b. And I think so. I think I've written down over there. I think
Yeah, there, I see it, yeah.
it says two of his daughters-in-law were Mamaim. Two of his sons died, and two of his daughters-in-law, the other sons, they were Ketanos, and they were Mamaim. They refused the marriage to their husband. So he lost out on two sons, and two sons died, and two sons lost their wives. So this seems to be the same story. Here it says it doesn't say openly it's the same story, unless it was another two sons. But here it says also a story of Avdan that his two daughters-in-law refused. They did miyun. The Kala say the Avdan Imrud. The daughters-in-law of Avdan, Imrud means literally that they rebelled, means that they were leaving their husbands. That's a kind of a miyun. But they didn't say explicitly, it seems. They didn't say explicitly but they stopped acting as a wife. They left, whatever it was. Shada Rebbe Zugi the Rabbanim lived the Kinus. Rebbe sent a pair of Rabbanim to check out if they don't want to come back, if they're doing a miyun, is it officially out. Amri Lahu Nashi, women said. So I saw this in Oswald. I didn't get the shot, but Oswald says that it means that women said to these two girls, the two daughters-in-law, when they saw these two Rabbanim coming, they thought that is their husbands. Chazu, Gavraichu Dikasu, see your husbands that are coming. Your husbands are coming. Amri Lahu, so the daughters-in-law said to the women, Nehevu Gavraichu Ditchu, let them be your husbands. Take take them yourself. Like they were saying, we don't want them. That wasn't an explicit way of saying that we don't want to stay with them, but they said, our husbands, such husbands, you take them for husbands. I'm a Rebbe, the who is yours. Let them be your husbands.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you're calling them our husbands. Let them be your husbands. I'm a Rebbe. That's a mian. Those words are a mian. Even though she didn't say explicitly, they didn't say explicitly we don't want. But by saying you take them for husband, that's another way of saying that we don't want, and that's considered a mian. And the Gemara thinks that this is equal to the case before when we said by getting married to somebody else. It's also not. The Gemara equates them because it's not saying explicitly that I don't want to stay with him, but by marrying somebody else. Yeah, they didn't marry somebody else, but they said you could take them for husbands.
And we know that they were married.
Oh, my love, very nice. My love, they have what? No, the
Were
Gemara
they
wants
married
to.
or were they just Kedushin? That's what we're trying to
The
find out.
Gemara is trying to prove if they were. The whole question was on this line here, the fourth wide line. The question we're dealing with is if this kind of remez that they don't want to stay married, is it only if they had kedushin to the first husband, or even as soon to the first husband? And the Gemara thinks that these words are mashma that they were married completely. I saw the Mefarshim, they say because they say your husbands, Gavraichu, the fact that they say see your husbands are coming, so that sounds like they were married completely. And you see that even a remez of a refuse of not wanting to stay with them is enough of a refusal. And you would answer the question that if they married somebody else, even if they were already Nesuin, it's enough. The Gemara says no, they have a mekadsha kedusha. That it could be they called them the husbands, even though they only had kedushin. It's also called the husband, so it wouldn't be approved to our question.
I was under the impression these are the yevamos of the other two, their husbands, and these are brothers.
No even over here.
No, even. Just took it for granted.
And the Gemara ends off, even though there was no proof. The Gemara does end off, even though we have no proof, but that's not halacha. The most extreme, that even if she's married Nesuin completely to the first husband and she did kedushin from a second husband, that's also a way of refusing the first husband.
The fact that it says halacha is like him, and we had a brisa that was about Nesuin. Do I have this right?
No,
It seems like if these two girls
had been
married,
so the Gemara didn't know so far. That's what the Gemara's question
and
was,
that's a bigger kiddush.
and we don't know. And the Gemara
So it says
saying
that, so how can you say that? How can you agree that it's in Nesuin?
the Gemara is saying a psak without having a proof. The Gemara tried to bring a proof. The Gemara says not a proof from that
The
story.
fact that it said halacha is like him, but that's
No,
not.
here we're coming to Paskin. Here we're coming to Paskin. This is the psak of the Gemara. We're going to pass like him, even if the first marriage was Nesuin, not because the Gemara is a proof.
I understand.
The Gemara is just sending off with a psak. The Gemara said, you have a raya, try to bring a raya, we disproved the raya, no proof. But no proof the other way either. And then the Gemara says, Allah, as far as the halacha goes,
It's not because it's Gavra.
no, right, that wouldn't be
Leans towards it, but there's
that wouldn't be enough of a proof. But the Gemara is passing anyway that
husband or the man.
the Gemara is passing that even if the first marriage was a complete marriage, Nesuin, and she accepted kedushin from a second husband, that's a refusal to the first husband, and she's out.
So that's not a base hill. Even if it's a complete mistake. That was the original.
We're talking about something else now. We're talking about how much you have to say in order to leave. It's true. You could do this. You could do miyun from the soon. That's true. That's true. But it was the Safra here is not that. We know that. If she would say openly, "I don't want," so that's not a question. That's true. We're talking about now. She didn't say fair. She didn't want. We're talking that she married somebody else. She accepted the condition from somebody else. Is that enough to be considered a refusal to the first husband, even though she didn't say openly? And the Maskan is yes. That's also considered enough of a refusal, even though she didn't say openly that she doesn't want the first marriage.
So the halacha is based on what?
The Gemara decided without it's what is it? It's all being magdir. It's not the rice. It's not. It's questioning what's the door of the Rabbanim when they invented this kedushin. What's enough considered that she said I don't want. So you don't have to say befavor. She has to have to show, and this is considered showing. This is like shikol adas.
Oh, because the whole thing is
the whole thing is Rabbanan. And now we're evaluating: is this enough proof that she means that I don't want? Let's say something. She got angry or something. This 11-year-old girl, and she says, "I'm going to my mother," and she goes out. She slams the door and she goes away. Does that mean that she doesn't want the marriage? Maybe not. I'm going to my mother. I'll be back in a week. So that doesn't mean. So that the Gemara would say that's not called a refusal. But this is called a refusal. If she accepts kedushin from somebody else, she knows that this means that I'm leaving the first one, and that's what she's saying. And even if it was nesuin and it's a real marriage, also accepting kedushin is a serious thing, and she knows what she's doing,
Can we
and
take
she's
the
saying
story also?
what?
Can we take the story also? If she said, "Well, you think my husband? Let it be your husband."
Yeah, that the Gemara says is enough. Yeah, that the Gemara says is also enough. That's saying I don't want it for her husband. I don't want it for
I
her
don't want
husband.
it for-
Saying I'm going to my mother, okay, I need a break, but to say they're taking for her husband, that means I don't want it for her husband. And that the Gemara says also on that. The Gemara continues. Rabbi Elazar Omer, what's this? So this was a question. Now we're talking about there's a marriage Rabbanan. Now everybody's happy, they're married, it's going well. What is the status of this marriage Rabbanan? So Rabbi Elazar says it's not a marriage really. It's just that he's allowed to live with her and she's going to be taken care of because she's under his jurisdiction, whatever. Not the word jurisdiction. She's under his. He's guarding her. How would you say that? Guarding her. She's taken care of. But Tagdora, did they invent a kedushin that it should be considered a marriage or not? So Rabbi Elazar says in the Mishnah, no, it's not considered a marriage, and therefore, if she's a bas kohen, she's allowed to, even though she married him, she's allowed to eat truma still. She's not married, and even though she's a if she's a
With me, we're talking
no mian, good marriage,
No
happy,
mian.
everyone's
She
happy.
can still eat the truma
So she can eat truma
if she's a basko,
right because she's not married to him, and
because it's only Rabbanan.
Rabbanan didn't make a marriage out of it. They just made that they could live together, a playhouse. We're playing house, but it's not house. It's not that they invented a house. They just said playhouse, so they play as if they're husband and wife, but it's not really a husband and wife. And therefore, if she's a bas Yisrael married to the Kohen, she's not really married. She can't eat truma. And the other way, if she's a bas Kohen married to Yisrael, she could eat truma because she's not really married. And then was a little bit more. I went to see all the studim. I think it means all the studim, all the different chachamim and what they say. And nobody is as consistent as Rabbi Elazar. Shasar Rabbi Elazar kimetayeles imo b'chatzer v'medes mecheko v'taveles v'cheles b'truma l'erev. That Rabbi Elazar considers her like she's just going for a stroll with him, which means they're having relations. But it means it's just like having a good time. They're going for a pleasant stroll. So they also go to the bedroom and have a pleasant stroll.
Just means who?
Rabbi Elazar made her considers her like she's just strolling with him in the courtyard, and then after they finish the relations, she goes to the mikvah because after that relation, she's not allowed to eat truma, and she can eat truma, which is a bas kohen married to a Yisrael. Not really a marriage. It's not a marriage, and after they have relations, she's just a friend, not considered a marriage. That's Rabbi Elazar. He's most consistent, means he makes it's not a marriage at all.
Who made the statement she is most consistent?
Rav Yudah Mashmuel.
The Erev, is that the last word in the
Right.
What does that mean?
You have to wait for nightfall, go to the mikvah, and then wait for Erev Shemesh. Because if you have relations, so then she's not allowed to eat truma that day. A man and woman have relations.
Standing mechiko.
Because she gets out of the relations, he finishes having relations. Cheko means his bosom. That means that
She had relations.
She had relations,
And now she goes to the mikvah.
and I goes to the mikvah, and she waits for truma at night,
She waits, and
like Erev Shemesh, after Seisei Kafala.
And all this is because
She's not really married, because it's a bas kohen. She's a bas kohen, even though she's having relations with this Yisrael, as if they're married, they're not really married. And therefore, she could go and eat truma still. Tanya Rabbi Elazar Omer. Ein masik tana klum. Again, the same thing. Rabbi Elazar is saying that's not considered a marriage at all. Vein ba'ala zakai lo b'mitziyasa v'lo b'masiyadeh v'lo b'afaras n'dareh vein yerosha vein metamala. That all these things that usually a husband connects to his wife once they're married, nesuin, but this is not considered a marriage. And here, he's not going to be eligible to keep her finding or keep her earnings or to nullify her vows or to inherit her if she dies, or if she dies, he's a Kohen, he's not allowed to become Tameh because he's not considered a wife. It's not considered a wife. The rule is she's not considered a wife in any way, in regards to any halacha. Only one thing that she has to officially say, I want to leave, in order to absolve the marriage. But it's not even a marriage. Even when it's going on, it's not a marriage. It's just that they're allowed to live together. Like it says before, like kemafuta, like she's been seduced. But it's a permissible seduction. It's not going to be something that's a treif. It's not znus, but it's not any kind of a marriage at all. But the Rishua, yes.
What if she would have a child?
As far as what? But it changes. She can't have a child. She can't have a child. She's too young to have a child. She's a ktana. She doesn't have children.
No, it means dangerous.
Oh, she's too young to have a child.
She's only dangerous from which age?
There's one part that she could have a baby.
Right, then it's dangerous. When is that? I forgot.
I'm sorry. Yeah, she's too young.
9
I'm thinking like
to 9 to 11.
No. Maybe 11 to 12. So what's the question? 11 to 12. So I think later on I might talk about this point if she's allowed to be in my mind once she's 11. Once she can have Shabbat. Maybe it's coming up. I don't know the answer to that question.
Putting us in suspense.
What?
What about having a child?
No, okay,
It's fine, it's
I
fine.
was thinking about like like in today's society, a 15-year-old or something who's legally, according to a lot of places in the world, that's considered a child and be illegal to get married.
Just
It would be considered rape. That's some like states in America.
I didn't follow.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
why does
Yeah.
it say Elishitzichami?
She's only considered a wife as far as one halacha that she needs miyam. Otherwise, it's just having relations. They're allowed to have union, but one only halacha requirement that she has to say, "I want to leave." Rabbi Shua, now we didn't have Rabbi Shua in the Mishnah. We only had Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Lezer was mentioned in the Mishnah, but here Rabbi Shua argues that we're going to pass like
This
Rabbi
is still
Shua,
a brisa, right?
right? And Rabbi Shua is going to argue. Rabbi Shua Omer. The opposite. He says the opposite. He says the opposite. That she's considered a wife midrabanan. Of course, everything's midrabanan, but midrabanan, she's considered a wife with all the ramifications of wifehood.
What do you mean with mitmala? I don't understand. I know it means impurity from what? What?
If she dies, is the husband who's a Kohen allowed to become tamei to his wife? So according to Yeshua, the husband gets her findings, the husband gets her earnings, the husband is the one who is allowed to nullify her vows, and if she dies, he inherits her, and if she dies and he's a Kohen, he's allowed to be matami to her. In general, the rule is that she's considered a wife for everything. Only one exception, that mian is enough. She also a mian, that you don't need to get, that she just refused. According to Rabbi Lezer, the only way we made it that she is a wife is that she needs mian. She doesn't just walk out, she has to say, I'm leaving, I don't want you. And according to Rabbi, that's the only chumrah of marriage. And according to Rabbi Shua, it's only cool of marriage that mian is enough. You don't need to get. But according to Rabbi Shua, it's considered a wife. Just to point out, the Gemara a while ago had a question, brought this down, asked the question that how could the Rabbanan have done that? Could the Rabbanan be okadavim in the Torah? Means as far as some of these halachas, it's money and matters. That the Gemara says hefka bes nefka means really doesn't belong to him. How did they give him all these monies? Metzia, Masiyadeh. How could they do all these things? And how far is the Dareha, Yerusha, Metamila? How could they do all these things? And Truma, how could they invent if they get against the Torah? And according to the Torah law, she doesn't get all that money, and he's not the one to nullify the vow, and he doesn't have the right to Yarshim Yerush against his money. And Truma, he's a Kohen, and Truma, how could she Truma? There's a kasha. The Gemara asked the kasha before. Yes.
He would agree that it's called playhouse, but it's a serious playhouse.
Right, you're playing
really
house.
You're really playing.
it
It's
means
still
that
playhouse, but it's a serious playhouse.
right. It
That's
means
what-
that the Rabbanan invented a house. It's a house that they could play with Rabbanan. You could really not play house. You could live the house, but the house is a Rabbanan house. The Rabbanan invented a kind of a house, a kind of a marriage, and you could live that kind of a house. It's not only play. It's not only make believe. It's not making believe. The Rabbanan invented Kedushin Rabbanan. That's how Yeshua looks at it. According to Rabbi Elazar, the whole thing is just play. It's only make believe, and there's no real. The Rabbanan say you can make believe,
but they invented this whole thing.
but according to Rabbi Yeshua, they invented a marriage, and the marriage has ramifications. That the Gemara is just chazering. Now I'm just going to say what the Gemara says before, that it's because Hefka Bez and Hefka. That's how they have the right to transfer monies that are not really coming to him. They said yes, and as far as the dorm, the Gemara says because the Isha Naderas al Das Baila, that a woman, she has intention only to do what her husband wants, and even if she's not really married, she wants to do what her husband wants. And Yerusha again is Hefka Bez and Hefka. The Tamei law is because she's considered a Meis Mitzvah. Since they gave the Yerusha to him, so no one else is obligated to bury her. So she's considered a Meis Mitzvah. So that's why the Kohen's allowed to be Metamei. And Truma, the Gemara says only Truma Rabbanan. All this was on the Gemara before a couple of pages ago.
Okay, and is this the end of the price? Huh?
No, not finished yet.
Not
Amar Rebbe, near in Divrei Rabbi Eliezer, but Divrei Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Eliezer seems more reasonable, more right than Rabbi Yeshua. Shabbaleza Hishva Midosa Kiktana, because Rabbi Yeshua was consistent. He made her a Kiktana consistently. Rabbi Yeshua Cholak, and Rabbi Yeshua divides. He's not consistent. By something she is a wife, something she's not. That's the end of the brisa. And now the Gemara analyzes, what do you mean? Why is Rabbi Eliezer better than Rabbi Yeshua? My Cholak, in what way did Rabbi Yeshua divide that sometimes she's considered a wife, sometimes some ways not? My Cholak, boy, get. What's the point? That if she's really, everything else make her a wife, but you don't need to get. That's the exception. So too, Rabbi Eliezer is also not consistent. Rabbi Eliezer nami ila vishtohi mi nami loti boy. That if she's not his wife, so she shouldn't need me neither. But that the Gemara doesn't see as a problem. Ela bechdi tepot, she should go out for nothing. The word bechdi means nothing. She should go out with nothing. She at least has to make a declaration she wants out. So just leaving we're not going to say that you don't need any kind of official declaration. You do need an official declaration. That's still being consistent. Rabbi Elazar is consistent that she's not considered a wife at all. It's only playing house. And Rabbi Yeshua is not consistent because he makes her considered a house Rabbanan, but this house Rabbanan does not need a get. So that's considered like not being consistent. But Allah is like a Bishua anyway. We do a pass like a Bishua, that it is a house Rabbanan, and all these things are true, that the Mitzia, Masyadeh, Faras Dareh, Yorsha, Metamila, and Truma, also, that if she
Have we had ready ones? That's how.
what would Yibum be? No, she does fall to Yibum.
I don't know what these words now mean.
She falls to Yibum with Rabbanan. If there's a question with a if there's going to be any confusion, any problem with the rice or not, but here it's no problem. She's not. Yes, Chaim David.
Where these three names? Where I can't read them.
Where are you reading?
Here.
My favorite.
Tevai get the Rabbi Eliezer name.
Yeah, Michael love. In what way is Rabbi Yeshua different? In what way does Rabbi Yeshua differentiate in the marriage? Because tiboy get. If it's considered a wife, everything else you might consider a wife. So then she should need a get. The fact she doesn't need a get means that you divided, you are not consistent. Some things you said she's a wife, and some things you say she's not a wife. But the Gemara is asking, if Rabbi Elazar is also not being consistent, because if it's not a wife, then she shouldn't even need miyan. She should just walk out. And that the Gemara answers, the Gemara answers with a question, like rhetorically, she should go out with nothing. At least she needs a declaration that she's leaving. Jessica says, I'm going home to my mother.
T-pick is what?
T-pick is to go out, to leave.
To go out.
Like the word nafka mina, nafka,
Yeah, nafka.
a couple of times.
Is this where the halacha is established or not here?
It does, no, the was not going to say, I'm just saying, the last like Rabbi Yeshua that, I don't know where the Gemara says, but the past like Rabbi Yeshua that she, all those things are true. She does get, Metzia, Masyadeh, Faras Dareh, Yorsha, Metamila, and Truma also, we do pass like Rabbi Yeshua. Then we had the last statement in the Mishnah, which was a bit ambiguous. It said, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov said that if it's a cover, if it's held back from the husband, or held back from the woman, and we didn't know what was being said. So now the Gemara is going to say two pshatim. What is considered held back from the husband or held back not from the husband? I'm going to read on Shmuel, so he's going to learn that it's talking about what's going to be considered an expression of miyun. Again, miyun means she says, I don't want. Here the Gemara is going to say, sometimes we see an expression of hers that's going to be taken as a miyun. She's refusing the husband. And another kind of expression that's not going to be considered a refusal. What is that? Tavuli Nase. She's married to this first husband with Kedushin Rabbana, and somebody read her a shidduch. Tavuli Nase. Someone said, I want to marry you. The Amra Machmas Ploni Bali. And she said, I can't marry you because I'm married already. She said, I cannot marry you because I'm married already. Zuhi Yakava Shimana Ish. That's considered she's being held to the husband because of the husband. And what does it mean to say? That's since she's not refusing. If she says that I can't marry the second person because I'm married already, so she's recognizing that her marriage that she's married. But if she no, she's not the question of Yeshayim. She's just saying that I'm married. I'm not refusing I'm staying with him. I'm staying. I'm taking.
Therefore, she should remove.
Yeah, that's the next line. But if she says I can't marry you because I can't marry, they spread her a shidduch, and she says I'm not going to marry because the shidduch you're reading is not a good shidduch. They read she's married to her first husband, and then they want to read her a second shidduch, and she says that's not a good shidduch for me. So by saying that, she's saying, I'm not married. The fact that she's, if she doesn't say, why did she say, I'm married? The fact that she's saying, I don't like that shidduch, that's not what I'm looking for. That means that she's looking. That means that she's not married. That's considered a miyun. If she said, Machmas b'nei adam she'enim muganu, these don't fit for me, they're not compatible. Zuri akava she'enim manaish. That's not from the husband, and therefore it's considered a miyun. What's the lashon of the Mishnah? The Mishnah said it was a big statement. You go back to the Mishnah, it says, if she's being held to the husband because of the husband, that's as if she's his wife, which means that's not a miyun. She said, I can't marry a second person because I'm married already. That means she's still married to him. But what if she says she's held back to the husband, but not because of the husband, because there's nobody else to go to? because the second shidduch you're wedding me is not a good shidduch. So that's already considered a mian. Kilo ena ishta. It's a chiddush because I would think this is the biggest chiddush of mian because just by saying that the second shidduch is not a worthy shidduch, so he's just saying I don't want to leave the first husband yet till I get a good shidduch, but maybe she didn't leave yet. But the Gemara says no. If she says such a statement, that's as if she's saying I'm not by the first husband. I'm not really married to him. That's considered a refusal to the first husband. If she says I can't marry a second husband because it's not a good shidduch, I'm not taking it up because it's not a good shidduch. So then that's another way of saying I'm not married to the first husband. It's considered a refusal, and she's out. She's out of the first husband. That was one shot in the Mishnah, and the other shot is altogether different. Where's that? Abaye bar Ovin. Abaye bar Ovin, Rab Chanina bar Ovin Amrit Abaye. Nasan laget zui akava shimona ish. Vuasa bikrovoseh v'yasur bikrovov. The pasam akuna. But yenabo zui akava sheina mona ish. Umuta bikrovoseh. V'muta es bikrovov. V'lo pasam akuna. That we want to know, is it considered a get? Is she considered divorced or not? So it depends. There are two ways that this girl could leave. The whole invention we made about Mion is an invention that she has the right to leave and say, I don't want it, she refuses, she leaves. But that doesn't mean that the husband can't give her a get also. The husband can say, I don't want it. She's not worse. She's not more connected to him than an adult wife. An adult wife, he can give her a get. So a Ketana also can give her a get. But if he gives her a get, then she has din of a Gusha. By Mion, if she says, I want out, then she absolved the whole thing of a prayer. She never was married, the whole thing is off, and she'd be about to marry Cohen. And also as far as relatives, she doesn't become like a Gusha that she's also to marry his relatives and she's also to marry her relatives. So that's what it says. So it's a whole different halach. It's not coming to say what's mean. It's coming to say what is the status of the woman after she leaves. Depends how she left. If the words mean different, akava mina ish means how do the words read now? Go back to the Mishnah. Akava shimina ish. If the reason why she's being sent away means the word akava here is going to mean like terminate. If the termination was from the man terminated the marriage, then it's like it was his wife who got divorced. That means if he gave her a get, then it's considered his wife who got divorced. And now after the divorce, he's not allowed to marry her relatives, like he can marry her sister, let's say, and she cannot marry his brother. They're considered divorced. And also she cannot marry a Kohen. But if the marriage was terminated not from him, she terminated it, then kilu ena ishto. She got me, and then it was never a wife. And therefore, she could marry his relatives, she could marry her relatives, and she could marry a Kohen because she never was divorced. And the truth is, the Gemara is going to say right away, the truth is that's the next Mishnah. It's the next Mishnah coming up right here. And the Gemara is going to say that the Mishnah before meant that just to explain, the Mishnah is going to just explain itself. That's the word's conscious now. It says right away, it's going to say this whole thing, it's going to say openly, that if she was Mamayan, then she's mutter to marry his relatives. He's married to marry her relatives, and she's not possible to marry a Kohen. But not some get. If he divorced her with a get, then it's like a marriage that was terminated, not that it was absolved with my prayer. And who also bekrova said, also bekrova, pastor manakuna. So why are you saying that the Mishnah before says that? That's the next Mishnah. You're repeating yourself. The Gemara answers, push it come to Farish. The Mishnah that's explaining itself. First it says the klal, and then it explains what we'll do right now. That's what we're up to now, and it's just going to explain what we just finished saying. It just says,
Did you do the Hakatani?
yeah. And Naktani Lakaman, if you want to, you can just look at the Mishnah 2 lines later. This is the Mishnah. And then what I was asking, we can learn later in 2 lines, the Mishnah says this whole statement, that if she did Mion, then it's not a marriage. And the relatives are mutter and can marry a Kohen. And if he gave her a get, then they were married, then it's terminated, and he cannot marry the relatives, she cannot marry the relatives, and she passes manakuna. So why are you telling me that the Mishnah before said that? The next Mishnah says it. It says the same thing 2 times. The Gemara answers, Pushi come Farish. The Mishnah is explaining itself. First it said the formula, and then it said the ramifications. Is it considered mina ish, mina isha? And that's what the Mishnah says now.
I see.
Now we just learned the Mishnah, we just learned it a second ago. Hamama enes beish, who mutter b'krov vaseh, he muteres b'krov vav, v'lo pasam manakuna, nasam laget, who asa b'krov vaseh, he asur b'krov vav, v'prasta manakuna. Let's finish that, everything's good. That if she ended it, so then it's absolved l'matreya, no marriage. If he ended it, then it's a get, and she's considered a grusha, with all the ramifications of being a grusha. Now, next case, the rest of the Gemara now today, the rest of the sugya is going to be about Machzei Grushasa, taking back the divorced woman after she married. So this case of Mion, is it considered a marriage that if she marries somebody else, he's allowed to take her back again? So if there was only a Mion and she married somebody else, You can take her back because it wasn't a marriage.
You turn the page on it?
No, on the one line up to no son get.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yes. Okay.
So there we got. Now, what if he would have done Mion and she married somebody else?
If what?
She was married. He was married to this Ketana.
Yeah,
They're running
he
marriage,
gave-
and she did Mion. I'm saying a case first. She did Mion, and then she married somebody else, and then he divorced her. Could she go back to the first husband?
And then he, the second husband.
They're divorced or died or divorced her, and now she wants to go back to the first husband. So Moshe says yes. Why not? She was not married to the first husband since it was absolved with a Mion. Says it was never a marriage. She can go back.
Can you say the meal is enough to not come back to it? No.
What if he gave her a get?
No, sure not.
Even though the whole thing is the Rabbanan, but he gave her a get, and then she married somebody else. She can't go back to the first husband. Here, now goes the complicated case. Not a complicated, here goes now the compounded case. How about Nasan get, the Zira, and then Mia Nabo, then this is
What's
Lacha.
that? See,
He took her back. He gave her a get. He gave her a get. She didn't marry. He gave her a get, and then he reconsidered, took her back. And then she reconsidered, and she said, I want out. So it happened both a get and a Mia. Same husband. First he gave her a get. There's going to be a lot of this coming up.
he gave her a head,
He gave her a get,
and then
And then he took her
said,
back.
"Come
then took her back.
That's good.
And then she says, I
And she
don't
said,
want
I
it.
don't want.
So now there's a get and a Mian. And then she marries somebody else and he dies. Could she go back to the first husband? Before we said if it was only a Mian, she can go back. If it was a get, she cannot go back. Here was a get and a Mian.
What's Idnit or Malah?
She became bewidowed.
She
It's like-
married somebody else and then he died.
Right.
Okay, got it. Uh-huh.
And she became a widow or she became a divorcee.
Or she became a divorcee. I see.
So that's the case. Let's try to highlight that. I think we might be able to use it.
Live the life.
Nothing like indecisive. Huh?
There are two cases. One says mutar lachzevla, one says asur lachzevla. The first case was that there was a get and then mion, and then she married somebody else who wants to come back. She could because it ended up with a mion. The first husband ended up with a mion, even though there were two things happening: the get and mion. But since the mion was after the get, so we don't see the mion, and everything is absolved. Delete everything, and she can go back to him after she married somebody else. But if she first did mion, the first husband, the story was different. First she was married, and she did mion, and then he took her back again, and then he gave her a get. Then she married somebody else, and became a widowed. Then we look at the get. Asur lach. So then we say that ended up with a get, whatever was last. If it ended up with a get, then we look at it like a get. And since it was a get, so she was married, and then she married somebody else, and she can't go back to the first husband anymore.
No, okay. Let's say he gives her a get. First husband gives her a get. Then she lives with somebody else. Beyond.
She married somebody else?
No, she didn't marry. She just lived with him.
Znus? You're talking about the marriage rabbanon. Yeah, she married somebody else. She's a ketana. She married somebody else,
And then she does near to
the second husband.
and then she wants to go back to the first guy.
So what would you think?
Why can't she go back? She didn't.
You would think that she can go back because the second marriage was not a marriage. It was just like Znus. I hear there should be, but it's not going to be like that. But then why don't talk about such a case here, right? These two cases. Now.
He gave her a get. That finishes.
See, here the Mishnah says depends which was last.
No, it's
The first husband, the two things, a get and mian and get. If it was a get and mian, we only see the mian. And therefore, if she married somebody else and he died, whatever, and he divorced, she can come back because she was not married to the first husband. But if there was a mian and then get to the first husband, so it ended off with a get, we look at it as a get. And if she married somebody else, she cannot come back anymore to this husband. That's the Mishnah.
That makes sense.
Now the Mishnah on the
My
other
case
day,
didn't come up yet.
the other case didn't come up. Zaklau, the Mishnah is just going to sum up what we just said. Get the Achamion Asur Lachzalo. If the get was last, get after the Mion, she can't go back. Mion get Muteres Lachzalo. If it ended up with a Mion, she could go back. That's the first case we had so far. Now goes a complicated case, and like not complicated, but like more case. Many husbands. One of these cases. The first husband, Mion. She had one husband. Husband number one. I think I got me like 5 husbands over here. Husband number one.
She did me.
She did Mion. Then she got married to somebody else, and he divorced her.
That means there's a get.
There was a get. Second, the first one was
She's a
Mian.
katana for all of us.
Yeah. She's Ketana. She started 5, 6 years old, whatever, 6, 7, 8, 9. The first one was a Mian. Second one was a get, and then a Girsha, and then La'acher, and then she got married to a third husband, and then she was Mamayim. Bo. So Mian, and then a get, and a Mian.
The Girsha is La'acher.
No, yeah, let's go. Let's do the commas over here. Hamama enes beish v'niseis la'acher v'girsha.
And then La'acher now is going to be a third one, number 3.
Then la'acher u'miyanaba. That was number 3.
Okay.
And then la'acher v'girsha. So you have four husbands over here. Miyun get. And if you wanted to put the bach in another miyun, put in more. Put in another miyun over there. Zach, so what do you do over here? What do you do in this case? Are the husbands allowed to take back this woman? Can any of the husbands take back the woman that married somebody else? Here it says, Zaklal, Kol she'yotze mena beget, asur la'asalo. B'miyan mutar la'asalo. Any husband that she left with a get cannot go back. A husband, each husband depends how the wife left him. If she left him with a get, he cannot take her back after she married somebody else, even if it was left with a mian, the second husband. But if she left him with the husband who left with the mian, then he could take her back.
So we have a kasha in the Mishnah.
You have a kasha?
Yeah, the ratio of the Mishnah said he gave a get and she did a mir.
The second time to the same husband. First the get.
Oh, because it's the
same
husband.
That's what it says. Maybe you have a kasha, but so far that's the case. The case was
then we have a cloud that if he gave a get, it's all over.
the thing that he did last. The thing that he did last was a get. So then
the first case was a man gave a get and she did mir.
So then it ends up with a mian. So it says that he could take her back. If she ended off with a get.
No, not ended off. Anytime that there's a get, you can't go back to that.
It doesn't say. It just says get a hamiyan. She can't go back. Get the same husband. It says top line that the cloud was that if the get came after the miyan, so then she cannot go back then because she ended off with the get. Get a hamiyan, she cannot go back.
Get
the same husband. That first it was a miyan story and then a get. The get after the miyan. The get ended off with the get. The relationship ended off with a get. First was a miyan. Got together again. Then it ended up with a get. So she cannot, and then she married somebody else. She cannot come back to him anymore
so
because.
So it says, miyun acher get muteret lachzor lo, and then zeh klal. Anybody who goes out with a get, asur to go back to him. So it's look at the end now. Zeh klal.
Kol she'yotze mena beget.
Asur lachzor lo. So then here we just said muter. So it seems to me like a kasha. Steer on the Mishnah.
It says muter when she left him with a miyan. Miyan, it says in the second line, it says if she left him with a miyan acha get, the miyan, she left him with a miyan, so then she left with a miyan. Here it says if she left him with a get, then she's also. Here she left him with a miyan. The first time was a get.
If she left him with
the last time that she left him was with a miyan acha get, she's allowed to go back.
In other words, when he gave a get,
but then later on he gave him.
Leave him?
Yes, but then it says afterwards the miyan cancels that out. If afterwards he gave her a miyan, she came back and he gave miyan, then you'll only look at the miyan deletes everything before.
So when it says, and so the sefer is when he leaves with a get and then she goes and marries
somebody else. But she left him with a get, so she can't go back to him.
I see.
But the Gemara is going to make you a question. But the Gemara, but they're saying is going to ask you questions. Okay. But the Mishnah so far talks about the same husband that did a few things. So then you look at the last thing. If they are different husbands, so then each husband doesn't cancel out the other husband. Mm-hmm. Each one you look at, you left with you divorced her, you can't take her back.
But you know that from the Mishnah, or you would need the Gemara to know.
Those are the cases.
Just look at the words.
These are the cases. The case in the it says miyunach get, it means the same husband. That's the case. The Zah Klal here is talking about the Klal that it said about the same husband. But the Gemara is going to ask the kasha, and then we'll talk about it.
Today,
now it's already yes.
Today, a lady gets divorced.
Yes.
Okay? She sleeps with somebody else. She
It's
doesn't
snus, not marriage.
Not marriage. And then she wants to.
She could go back. We had that once, and we looked up in Shulchan Aruch, and that's
Like in
it's-
case of a rape or something, even if she.
Rape or
Well,
she
rape is
did
his
it,
own
or
experiment.
she, but no, but or she did it willingly also. If it wasn't marriage, it was. If it wasn't marriage, so she could go back to the first husband.
Okay.
It's 12 o'clock, and we have a, so we can go further. Everyone wants to go further? I have to ask over here anybody who's on. 1 second, please. Shaul,
Yes, sir.
is that? I'm not sure if you're here for the daf or you're here for the next class. Is it okay if we continue the daf?
Of course.
Okay. Do we know Simcha Shlomo?
Yeshiva Nachlaot, I don't know who it is.
Okay, do we know? Okay, I don't know. Shalom Aleichem. I don't know if we've met before, and we're if it's okay to continue the daf. Okay.
It's nice to probably be several people watching. Maybe.
Okay, the Gemara continues. Alma asi miyan bavatul get. In the beginning of the Mishnah, we said that it was ended off with a miyan, so then it's canceled. The husband is the same husband, first the get and then miyan, so we only see the miyan, and he's allowed to take her back again if she marries somebody else. For a minute, Leib Yaakov's kasha. Amamenes beish v'niseis lacher v'girsha la'acher u'miyan abo la'acher v'girsha. The whole end of the Mishnah. Zak klal kol shiyat seimenu beget asur alachsalo v'miyan v'teres lachsalo, that the husband that left with a get, so then he cannot take her back with a miyan. He could take her back, even though there was a miyan after the get. Why don't we say that the miyan of the next husband cancels out the miyan of the previous, the get of the previous husband? Yes, all that was the quote of the Mishnah.
Where did you end?
The last one on the line is Alma, right? That's all the quote. And now the Gemara takes over. Alma lo wasi miyan techavre ubatel gita didei. You see that whatever was later doesn't cancel out the previous history.
It's my friend.
Doesn't delete. Right. If the miyan, we say the svar is because you see that she's a girl, she's a ketana, even though it was a get, it looks like it's a serious get. If you see she did miyan afterwards, so then it shows that it's nothing. It's a ketana. So you see in the end of the Mishnah that you don't say that the miyan of one person cancels out the get of the other person. So how come in the ratio we said that the miyan that he did at the end does cancel out the get that he did previously?
Maybe it's different with one person the same.
The Muslims try that. So first, Rabbi Mishmol said it's a good kasha. Tavra, break it. Misha Shanazu, Shanazu. It's two different tanoim. Means it's talking about they don't fit with each other, and it's two opinions, and you have to explain that the one who holds in the first opinion that the miyan does cancel out the previous get. So in the second case is also it would cancel out the previous get of the other person, and the one who holds in the sefer that it does not cancel out would argue in the first case also. Means there's no difference in all the cases. There's a machlokis if a miyan cancels out the previous get or not. Two different tanoim, right? Two different tanoim, and even though the Mishnah doesn't look like that, it's very dochak to say such a thing. But that's the best we could do. That there must be two mishnayos that got imposed, whoever imposed the one on the other one, and they really two different cases, but it's all the same. There's no difference at this point. The Gemara says no difference between the same person or two different people, and there's a machlokes if the miyan afterwards cancels out the previous get. That was what Shmuel said. But Rava says the kasha is not a kasha. Rava, it's what Ravam said. Well, my question, maybe it is not a kasha. Dilma miyan didei, mevatel get didei. Miyan dechavrei, lo mevatel gita didei. Maybe his own miyan can cancel out the previous get, but somebody else's miyan cannot cancel out the get. So what's the kasha? No kasha. And the Reish is talking about one person, and the miyan deletes the previous get. But the different people, one person's miyan is not going to cancel out somebody else's get. But the Gemara says no, there shouldn't be a difference. Now comes a big surprise.
So, excuse me. So you gave me Rava's answer,
right?
Before we got here,
right? And that's what Ravam said.
Yeah. Okay.
And now the Gemara is going to say that there shouldn't be a difference. Now comes a big surprise that we didn't expect. Till now we expected. The whole point is Machzik Gushaso is a marriage. If it's not a marriage, so then it's not Machzik Gushaso. I never divorced her, right? Mm-hmm. But the Gemara now comes with a new idea. How come we don't allow a person that divorced his wife to take back a wife after she did miyan? A man divorced his. This talk about the ketana. Everything's a ketana here. He divorced the wife. Really, the whole thing's a joke. The whole thing's only drabanan, right? And the miyan afterwards really shows she's a ketana. There's no real problem. There's no real problem with Masik Gusha. So like Moshe started saying that if the miyan happened afterwards, so the second one's not a marriage either. So really, the miyan at the end shows that the whole thing is drabanan. There's no chash really of Masik Gusha. So there's no real Masik Gusha over there. How come we don't allow a man after he gave a get and she married somebody else who did miyan how come we don't allow the miyun to cancel out the get, and the previous husband should be allowed to take her because we're scared that the previous husband is going to get her to do miyun. He wants her back. He gave her a get, and then he has second thoughts, and he wants to take her back, and she married somebody else.
And
He'll try to convince her to do miyun, and then she can go back. So we don't allow her to go back. That's the word.
ID is, that's where it's going to come.
Where are you
from.
holding? Oh, we'll
That's
see.
the answer.
That's me. But the more says, the more saying, and therefore, if that's the reason, if that's the reason, the Gemara is going to ask. So we always should be scared that he's going to take her back, do miyun. What would be the din if husband she happened miyun by him, a get and then miyun, and then she met somebody else? Are you going to let him take her back? You let her take. If he did get and then a miyun,
She did miyun to number 2.
the case of the Mishnah. The case of the Mishnah was that the first husband was get and miyun,
Oh, get miyun to number 1.
and the same husband, right? And then he's allowed to take her
Yeah.
back, even though the next one's going to be miyun also. Let's say. How come let's put 2 miyuns in a row, two different husbands? Is the first husband allowed to take her back? If the first husband
We said
gave
the rule
miyun,
is,
whatever if she left him with miyun, he's allowed to take her back. Now what if the next husband also is going to be miyun?
Yes, but she's chosen to go back to the first.
We don't want to allow that he should entice her. If you're going to allow the first one to take her back, so then he'll entice her after she married somebody else. I'll be a better husband. I wasn't so good in the past, but like I'm going to be a good husband. So do miyun and come to me.
But once she made miyun, she's showing that she made the decision.
Right, very good. That's the Gemara's answer. I was going to say, depends, how did she leave the first husband? If she left the first husband with a get, it means that she wants to stay. He doesn't want her. Then she wants him. Then that he might have second thoughts and he'll want her back, and he'll be able to entice her because she wanted him the whole time. She left him because she was thrown out. But if she left with a miyun, she doesn't want him. Then there's no shot she's going to get her back because he tried it. It didn't work. So
Well, buy a new lollipop. And then it'll
he
work.
tried the lollipop. It didn't work.
It's her
The
decision.
girl comes down once in a while.
That's what
the
the-
case is if he gave a get and she did miyun.
That's the case in the mission in the beginning, right? The first
Yeah.
case was get miyun, he could take her back. If she married somebody else and then he could take her back, even if she did miyun.
If she married somebody else.
Yeah,
There was no married to somebody else in the first one.
in the first case there was. If she didn't marry anybody else, of course she could take her back. You could give her a get 10 times and can take her back if she didn't marry anybody else. The
If
only
she didn't marry.
right, of course the case when she married somebody. That was the case of the Mishnah. That he gave her a get and then he took her back and then did miyun and then she married somebody else and then the other one died. Or the widow, that's the case we were reading before. She got widowed or divorced. That's the case she married somebody else.
Oh,
And then it says if she left with a miyun from the first husband, she can go back.
if she left with me and she can go back.
Even if the second one's going to be a miyun also. That's the much used to say now. The more asks, we're now going to say why we can't say the difference between what Ram said. There's a difference between if it's the same person or 2 different people. And the more says shouldn't be any difference. How come we don't allow the second person's miyun to cancel out the first person's get? How come? Because I did the makeres b'rizosa b'kritzosa because she recognizes his hints and winks. He'll go and persuade her and bring her. That means that the Moses is explaining how is it possible for the first husband to entice the second woman. She's a married woman. How is he going to get her? He can't talk to her. How could he go to explain? The husband, she's married to the second husband. But from a distance, since she knows, she knows how to understand his gestures, and he'll say whatever, whatever he's going to gesture, that she understands how he's going to get her a big lollipop.
Mishapash.
Mishabesh is to be mefaten, to
Mishapesh.
Usually it's complicated.
right, but sometimes it means to persuade. There's a Gemara over there. There's a Gemara where it says mean to persuade. Oh, Maisila, yeah, and he'll bring her. If that's the reason why we don't allow the second miyun to cancel out the first get, so miyun didei nami lo levatul gita didei. So also, if he first had a get and then a miyun, and she left him with a miyun, also you should say that I shouldn't cancel it out. The idea that makeres b'mizosa b'pitzosa was l'mushavish Maisila. If she marry somebody else, also he's gonna entice her to come back again. That the Gemara says no, because she left with, like Moshe said, because she left with a mion. He tried to persuade her, she didn't get persuaded because she left with a mion. If she left with a mion, then we don't, not scared he's gonna take her back. So he could marry her again. But if she left with a get, and she wanted to stay, then we're scared he's gonna entice her, so we don't let him marry her, and the second mion is not going to cancel out the get.
So is that not like the Mishnah?
No, it's now everything's good. At this point, there's no kasha. At this point, the Gemara does. At this, no. I'm sorry.
I thought if it starts with the get, then he can't take her back if the second.
Right. So at this point, the Gemara. I'm sorry. I'm losing judgment. At this point, the Gemara is saying that the kasha was a good. Rava was trying to say it's not a kasha, and now the Gemara explained why it is a kasha. That there shouldn't be a difference. The Gemara is back to the kasha again. Not everything's good now. At this point, the Gemara is saying it's a kasha. That. I'm sorry, I lost track. I'm sorry. The Gemara is talking about a get and a mion. If one, it's supposed to move because it gets Moshe keeps on getting. Yes, if you move this back, so then it just keeps that. So.
Perfect for now. Let's see.
So the Gemara is talking about if a later mion cancels out the previous get. If a husband who's did a mion, he can go back, he take it back his wife. His marriage without a marriage, he can take back his wife. It's not komatsu b'shasa. That's what the klal is. But if he left her with a get, he cannot take her back. Right. Now we have talking about if there was a get and then a mion. Does the later mion cancel out the previous get?
We said yes.
So we said in the first case we said yes.
Mm-hmm.
In the second case we said not.
Mm-hmm.
In the second case we said that there's the same husband. We said that a later mion does cancel out the get. And by two husbands, we say that a different husband's mion does not cancel out the previous get. That's what we said. That a husband who left his wife left with a mion, he cannot take her back.
It was rough. It's rough.
Whoever tried to, that's the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that. The Mishnah says this. What I just said, the Mishnah said. The Mishnah said in the first case.
Yeah, if you go, yeah.
Let's translate the words.
Yeah.
And second case of the Mishnah was that there was a different husband, so they cannot go back.
The get is
And the Gemara is trying to find out did those things reconcile with each other. Could you reconcile those two statements?
Yeah.
Shmuel seemed to say you cannot. Rava seemed to say that you could. And the Gemara is explaining, no, that you cannot reconcile it.
Yeah, it's a question.
But then the Gemara answered Rava. The Gemara answered Rava. And then we answered. We said the answer. Depends if you left with a get or you left with a mion. If the woman left you with a mion,
We're talking about a separate person now.
the Gemara doesn't see a difference between. The Gemara now is going to say there's a difference between the same person and two different people. Each husband, if the woman left with a mion, he could take her back.
Left with me.
Then he could take her back.
Only a me. Is that what it means?
Did I get it straight? If she left with a mion, he could take her back. I'm saying wrong.
That's what we always say. Yeah.
If there was a get and then a mion, then we say that he could take her back, right? Yes. And the Gemara explains, you know why? Good. The reason why you could take her back, because the same husband, if at first he gave her a get, whatever, it was it. But then at the end, she left. If she left with a mion, then the Gemara understands, I know why he could take her back, because there's no chash he's going to entice her, because he wasn't successful in enticing her. So there's no chash that he's going to entice her. So therefore, if he ended up with a mion, he could take her back. But if there's two different people, but this husband, she left with a get, then we ask her that he's going to entice her, because he had a second thought, and she does want to stay by him. So therefore, we're not going to allow him to take her back. And the second mion is not going to cancel out the previous get, and he cannot take her back. So the Gemara is happy.
He may entice her because he's the one who wanted to finish.
He sent her away. He sent her away. She wanted to stay. She wanted to stay. So therefore, we're scared he's going to entice her, and therefore we don't allow the second mion to cancel out the get and let him take her back. So at this point, the Gemara is happy with the Mishnah. There's no kashas. Ella, where are we holding?
Eli Kasha.
Eli Kasha or Kasha, I can't find it. Yeah, here it is. Top of the screen. Eli Kasha, the Chabre Kasha. If there's going to be a Kasha, it's not going to be a difference between him. By getting a mion of him and a get a mion of two different people is not a Kasha. But the Kasha is going to be a contradiction between two cases in the Mishnah, or at least the diuk between two different people. First, the Mishnah said, "Mi and Abol Zira get when this says lacher, when the sam alone is gasha asur lasaba. This is the case in the beginning of the Mishnah, at the bottom of the page, that first the me and then a get. A me and a get, what do we say? The same person, a me and a get. Then she marries somebody, he can't take it back. Then she marries somebody else, cannot take it back. But the Mishnah says, in the case to say they cannot take her back, it says a case that the second one was that she got widowed or divorced. It doesn't say a case of mian. How about if the second husband also did mian? The Mishnah doesn't say that case is usher to take her back. It just says usher to take her back. Time within the Samuel and Gasha. The only why it's usher to take her back is because the second marriage was either divorce or a widow. But her miana, but if she would have refused the second husband, she's allowed to go back. That's a deal, right? It's not a fair Mishnah, but it's a deal. The fact that the Mishnah only had a case where she was widowed or divorced from the second husband, that sounds like if it would have been a mian from the second husband, she would be able to go back to the first husband, even though he gave her a get. That means that the second mian does cancel out the first one. He could take her back. And we don't say this far about convincing and enticing. You do say that he could take her back, even though she left with a get.
The mian of a chavir will also move out to the get.
Right. And now the kasha goes. Now the kasha is a kasha. Very many, and the sefer says the opposite. I'm a man is bish. When this says la'acher, begirsha, kama la'acher umianabo. Ze'aklal kol chiyasamenu beget asur lasalo. B'mian b'teres lasalo. What does it say? That if there was two different husbands, the get and the second one was a mian, you cannot go back to the first husband. Amalosi mian the chavrim batal gita b'day. That's the kasha now. Not a contradiction between the person owned who did two things with the same wife, get and mian, but the two different husbands. Now we have a contradiction. And now we need a teretz. On this, the Gemara says, that when the Shmuel said at the beginning, who was it? Rav Elazar said it in the beginning. I forgot. Before it was Shmuel. Now the Gemara says that. So I didn't realize this. The Gemara changes the name over here. But Rav Elazar said, on this kasha, the answer is that it's not the same author. That in this diak, the diak of the Tanakama, and then the changes, that's a contradiction, and you have to say that's two different Tanoim that are talking. If you say this chash that the mian of the second husband is going to cancel out the get of the first one, do you say this for that it's going to entice her and therefore we don't allow him to take her back or not? That's a machlokes. Ula Amar kigon sheshilsha begitin the machazia kigdola. That the case that there's no difference between, there's not a machlokes, but it's a different case. The second case, even though it only has mian get, it also put in another couple. Mian get happened a couple of times. If there are three gittin, so then it looks too much like an adult. She got 3 times a get. We're not going to let her go back anymore and say that she's a ktana and everything is. If it was 3 times a get, then we'd say you can't go back anymore. 3 times. Shilshla.
3 times with a get. 3 times she got a get.
She got a get. So then she looks like a gedola, and then we're not going to say that he can take her back again because it looks like she got married. A regular case of Masik B'Shasa. It looks too much like a Masik B'Shasa. The Gemara continues. Mantana. Now that we said before, we said it's a machlokes. So who's the Tana that holds that it's also although that it's mutter? Amar Rav, the following story, very amazing story. It says in the pasuk in Necha, Meimenu b'chesef shasinu, etzenu b'mechir abo. It's a little bit. I got it over here. I got it in the middle of the halacha story. It says in the pasuk
Rob,
that
are you going to?
Yes,
I'm sorry to interject. Just wondering how are you just continuing or?
Yeah, I'm sorry for all the people of the next year. We asked permission earlier, but it's going overtime. And the question was if we can go further just to finish because we're so behind. So the
No
vote
problem.
was
No problem. I just want to know. So I'll come back in later.
Yeah, about 5-10 minutes or so.
Okay, you got
Okay,
it.
sorry.
Thank you.
Of
course.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah. Okay.
And so in terms of Ula, if it was less than 3,
Then
it would work.
right. No difference. Same husband,
The
same
law
different
would be
husband.
like
Right.
the Mishnah.
You could all right. Right.
It's only when it's 3 or more, it looks too much like a Gedol.
Right. Another says there's machlokes. We find I got it over here. Pasuk says in Echa and all the tzaras it says that we had to get money for water. Our water we drank with money. We had to pay money for our water. Even wood and water we had to get for money. But the Gemara is saying that it's referring to the Torah, that they had to pay money to get the Torah. This halacha, the following halacha was sought when it was danger. There was exeris against the Jews not to teach Torah, and they had a halacha that they had to know, and they were most nefesh to find out, they had to pay money to find out the halacha. What was the case? Mamish this case. It doesn't sound like it's a theoretical case, but they wanted to know it must have been such a case that she left the first husband with a get. She's a Tana that left the first husband with a get, and then she married somebody else and was a Mion, and the first husband wanted to take her back. Is he allowed to take her back? They hired somebody for 400 zuz to be able to go to the jail to ask Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was in jail, and it was a big time, they couldn't get to him, and they hired somebody, I don't know, was taking a big risk. They asked Rabbi Akiva was in the Beis Asurin, but he said, no, he cannot take it back. Two different
I'm
husbands.
sorry, what did the question?
Mahu Shetachzol Risha. She allowed to go back to the first husband. First husband divorced her. She married somebody else, and second husband she did me.
Okay.
Did she go back? And they asked, they had to hire somebody for 400 zuz, which is a portion of money. I think it's like 2 times a year, enough to room and board for 2 years of a single person. And they asked Rabbi Akiva in the Beis Asurim, and he said, no, cannot take it back. As Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseir ben Netzivan, also of Asa. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseir was in Netzivan, they asked him, and also he said it's Asa. So that's one Tana that says that it's Asa. We said it's Machlokes Tanan, about 2 husbands. And here it says that this opinion said, Rav said that according to the Kivan of Yehuda ben Beseir, it's Asa. They surely didn't need to ask that question. It's surely mutter. By Mion, you allow her to marry out. That's like an Eshes Ish. If you look at it like an Eshes Ish, so you say Mion is enough to take out an Eshes Ish, so it's surely enough to take away the Isalav of Masik Gushasa. So if Mion permits her to marry out, it surely permits the Isalav, and he says that's not a question, that the second Mion does cancel out the previous get. The following question was a question. We'll stop here. It's still a middle, but the following question, what we wanted really is just this point, that is a machlokes if this thing is Asr Mutter. The first Rav quoted Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira saying that it's Asr, that the Mian of the second one does not delete the get of the first one. But Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yossi says that that's surely Mutter. And it comes out that Rashi says Rav is a Tana, and when we say who's the Tana, we're talking about Rav and Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yossi says that it's Mutter, and Rav said that it's Asr.
And what's wrong?
But.
That's where we're stopping.
Okay, Yashikor everybody, and I'm sorry for the overtime. To be continued tomorrow.